Hello, welcome back to Messy Margins. Today I'm going to be doing my June reading wrap up. So I'm going to share with you what I read in June of 2025 versus what I read in June of 2026. In June of 2025, I only read two books. The first one was this one, Sam's Letters to Jennifer. I enjoyed it. It was like a love story, but not just a love story. It's about a woman whose grandmother passes away. So she goes to the grandmother's house. And then there's this guy who's one of the neighbors who befriends Jennifer. Sam is the grandmother. And they, start going out, blah, blah, blah. But she's not really interested, even though she kind of is interested. While she's taking care of her grandmother's things, her grandmother's house and shit like that, a bunch of letters that the grandmother left for her. And so she's reading the letters as the book goes on. And in these letters, we find out more about the grandmother's life in the past as well as in the present before she passed away. And through these letters, she also gives like her last words of wisdom to her granddaughter, Jennifer. You know what I'm saying? So while you're reading the book, you're like, okay, I know where this is going. Girl meets boy. Girl likes boy. They end up getting together. So it sounds pretty predictable as you're reading, but then they throw a curveball at you. James Patterson does in this story. And then you're just like, oh God, now what's gonna happen? Is this gonna go from a love story to tragedy? You just don't know. Even though deep down in my soul, I know that this ends up a tragedy. It doesn't necessarily end a tragedy, but it will become a tragedy. And it was really sad. I cried about twice while reading this book. It was just a really good book about losing yourself and finding yourself again, learning how to allow yourself to love again and be loved again. So the next book I read after that was After Dark. I'm not going to say too much about this because literally the last video I posted is, the last video that I posted is me talking about this book, like the whole thing. So I'm not going to say much. I finished reading it. I didn't like it. And, not long after, the characters seeped into my brain and they have been living there ever since. Okay, the book was fantastic. So now we're going to go into what I read in June of this month. I was reading this book, My Wicked, Wicked Ways by Sandra Cisneros. And I was reading this book along with another book, which I'll get into in a minute. And this is a poetry book, which is why I was able to read this along with the other book. So it's basically a book of poems. And there were quite a few poems in here. And out of all the poems, I liked 3 of them, which is fine. You know what I'm saying? Not everything is for everyone. The rest of the poems, they weren't terrible. I just didn't enjoy them. What I did enjoy was the cover of this book. I thought it was a really pretty cover. I like her as an author. I read The House on Mango Street. I enjoyed those books and I ended up just buying a bunch of her books. This one, I think there's like a short story collection, another poetry book, and some novels. But I chose to read this one because the book that I was reading along with it was horror. And I wanted something that wasn't horror to read when the horror became too scary. So I read this one. It wasn't terrible, but it wasn't one of my favorite poetry books that I've read either. So the book that I was reading along with this one, the horror, was written by my friend Craig Daviek, and it's called The Blackmore Nightmares. So this book is horror, the horror genre. There's like some family dynamic shit going on in the book as well. So this book is his debut novel. It's available on Amazon in the US as well as in the UK. And I enjoyed it. So basically the story is about a family, a mom, her 2 kids, son and daughter, and then the mother's mom. The husband has passed away, so they decide to move to the Blackmore house to start fresh. Little do they know that this house holds evil, okay? I don't want to say that the house is haunted, but the house is kind of haunted. And there's like a spirit that is wreaking havoc with the family that moves in. It seeps into their minds via dreams, via feelings, via the fucking house itself. These hands coming out of the sofa, that image is one of the nightmares, okay? The mom, if I'm not mistaken, has this nightmare where 7 fucking hands come out the damn sofa and try to abduct her into the nothing. It was an attempted abduction by these hands, okay? These arms, these extremities. What I liked about this book was the exploration of the grieving process. You know what I'm saying? Because not only is the mom, the main character, the mother, Ava, she's grieving the loss of her husband, right? But she's not the only one. Her mother is also grieving the loss of the husband, the son-in-law. And if you read the book, you'll find out exactly why. The kids, of course, are grieving. You know what I'm saying? Nobody wants to be in this new location, but this is what it is. So they're there. These things are happening. So you hear things. And so they're going to the house, and that's what's happening. They're hearing shit. They're like, oh, it's the house. Yeah, okay. The house is not settling. The house is trying to settle Ya and settle Ya into the ground. You know what I'm saying? 6 feet under, like dead. There are many deaths, and there were 2 deaths that I was very disturbed by and very saddened by. There was a scene that made me a little bit misty-eyed. I didn't cry, but I got verklempt. You know what I'm saying? I got choked up. So overall, for it being his first book, I thought he did a fantastic job. And it was really fucking good. There was one part that made me laugh out loud when he I don't remember the exact sentence. Says it makes me feel less insecure from wanting to declare war on brickwork. And I thought that was hilarious. So yeah, the Blackmore Nightmares, if you're interested in reading my friend's first novel, Amazon. After that, 365 Days of Wonder, Mr. Brown's Book of Precepts, written by R.J. Palacio, and this is basically a book of 365 precepts. I read them all in one sitting because it's fast. It's literally just, that. And then in between each month, there's like little stories, Mr. Wonder, the teacher, little stories about his students and how some of these precepts were able to change the students' point of view as far as how they behaved and blah, blah, blah. And so this was a used book that I received. There was someone threw it out and I got it. And whoever owned this book first, they have a letter from their grandma. And I thought it was the cutest thing. So I'm going to read to you the note. It says, these are my glasses so that I can see. It was written on May 21st of 2015. Dear EJ, I met Mr. Brown and his precepts in a book called Wonder. I think his precepts are good food for thought and hope you'll enjoy them. With much love on your graduation, Grandma. That's the cutest little thing. So I keep it in the book and I enjoyed it. It was a light read. There's some insightful precepts. They make you think about your own life and what you can change or do better in your own life. So this is a good book, especially for kids, like young kids, junior high school kids, maybe even high school kids, as well as adults. After that, being that it's June, Pride Month, I decided I wanted to read some queer lit, right? And this is a book that I had been wanting to read for several years. And it is called Ruby Fruit Jungle by Rita Mae Brown. And I love this mass market paperback edition. I loved this book. It was a fast read. It was annoying at times because there's a character that I wanted to punch in her face several times, but towards the end of the book I felt like I understood the bitch and I no longer wanted to manhandle her, right? But it follows the story of a little girl from the time that she's about, 7 years old to the time where she's like in her early 20s. It follows the story of her growing up in the South, knowing that she's different. Everyone can see that she's different, not in a way where like she's gay, but in a way where she's just not like the others. There's a very specific reason for that. I won't tell you. I'll let you find out if you read the book. She is different from the other kids. Like, she don't take no shit. She's gonna fucking knock you out. Even at 7 years old, she was ready to knock motherfuckers the fuck out if need be. She's gonna speak her mind. She's gonna stand her ground. She's gonna challenge fucking notions if she thinks that they're ridiculous and make no sense. And so she was a problem her whole life growing up. Her father adored her. The mother, not so much. It tells the story of her growing up in the South. Eventually, she finds her way again in the South, in Florida. And then from Florida, she finds herself in New York City, where I am currently right now. I would love to be anywhere but New York City. She finds herself in New York City, homeless, sleeping in a car with another homeless person. And, she does a couple of things with this guy, not sexually. Before she ends up in New York, while she's still a little girl, while she's still in the South, she begins experimenting sexually. You know what I'm saying? With boys. And then she has an experience with a girl. and realizes this is where it's at. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm not supposed to be having sex with dudes. I don't even enjoy this. I'm supposed to be with women, and that's it. By the time she's in New York, she knows exactly who she is, what she wants, what she doesn't want, right? And then things happen. When the book is over, you are left feeling like this girl, Molly Bolt is her name, like she is going to do whatever it is that she says she's gonna do. At one point, she says she wants to be president of these United States of America. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not surprised that if in her fictional world, she's the president of the United States, you know, because she was gonna do it. She was determined. She was a fighter. And I loved this character and I loved this book. I found it so funny. There were some really sad moments in it. There was some really funny moments in it. There was some really infuriating moments in it. And it was just a really good book. I would recommend this book for people who are trying to figure out who they are, what they want to do in life, who they want to be with in life. You know, all of these things. If you're feeling lost in life, read this book. It'll give you some inspiration. And if you're feeling down, it'll make you laugh. So the 5th book I read this month was this one, Something Like Summer by Jay Bell. And I enjoyed this book so much. I enjoyed the book. And then, like an idiot, I watched the movie, and the movie was fucking horrible. I watched the movie after reading the book, and when I tell you that was a movie that should not have been made. You know what I'm saying? It felt like I was watching a cheesy-ass after-school special with actors who can't act, except for, like, the girl that played the best friend. She was the only one that was good. And the dude that plays Tim was gorgeous. Anyway, so this is about two guys, Benjamin and Tim. Or, well, only Tim calls him Benjamin. People just call him Ben. So it's their story. There's a sideline story involving his best friend and her dad. So basically it's dumb. Ben meets Tim. They literally like crash into each other. They eventually start fucking. So they get together, and as with a lot of these fucking queer books, one is out and proud, Ben. Tim is not. Tim doesn't believe that he's gay. And so that poses a problem for Ben because he's like, yo, what the fuck is this? You know what I'm saying? Let's stop lying to ourselves, shall we? It tells the story of them as teenagers being together, being in love, sharing special moments, and then shit goes left. And now you fast forward a few years and Ben is in a new relationship with Jason, but they call him Jace. So he's with this new guy, and then of course, who comes out of the nothing back into the picture? Old Timmy boy. So Tim comes back into the picture on one. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm back in full effect. I've accepted who I am, and I want my man. And so that's what the rest of the story is about. Is Ben going to cheat on Jace with Tim? Is Tim going to disrespect the relationship that Ben has with Jace because he wants Ben back? You know what I'm saying? Like, what's going to happen? And let me just say, shit goes down. Shit goes down. And I was just like, damn. You know, your first love, the first person who turns you out, you know what I'm saying, and gets you to see who you are, what you want. I love books like this. Whether there's a sad ending or a happy ending, I like books where people need to figure it out and just accept who they are. Because no matter what, even if it's a good ending or a sad ending, once the person accepts who they are, they're happy. You know what I'm saying? Whatever the issues were, yeah, this motherfucker might not want to be with me, but guess what? I know who I am moving forward. And so any story where one person can't accept themselves for who they are, but then learns to do just that, I think that that's glorious. All right. The last 2 books that I'm reading currently. So it's 100 Best Loved Poems from like back in the day. There's like mad old poems, Shakespeare, Yeats, fucking Dylan Thomas, like all the poems from back in the day. These are the 100 best loved poems. So I'm reading this alongside the last queer book that I'm reading for the month, because like I said, the 8th book, there's no way I'm gonna be able to get it in here. Olivia by Dorothy Strachey, Charlotte.
What?
Strachey, Charlotte Strachey, or Charlotte Strachey has written this book called Olivia. And I don't know if y'all heard about the book Call Me By Your Name. Andre Aciman wrote Call Me By Your Name, and he did the introduction to this book. There's like an introduction by him in here where he says that he read the book many, many times and bought it for several of his friends, and that he considers this book to be the inspiration behind him writing Call Me By Your Name. So that intrigued me because I liked Call Me By Your Name. I liked the book better than the movie. So this is about a 16-year-old girl who is sent to France for like finishing school, and there she meets Mademoiselle Julie. And when I do finish reading it, I'm gonna come back and give you my thoughts. Like, it's crazy because Shorty is 16. The teacher, they haven't said how old she is yet, but she's clearly not a teenager. I just don't know if she's over 21 or what. It's intriguing so far. The writing style is okay. You know, it's easy to follow. It's not like some super hard shit to follow. There are a lot of French words and French sentences in here, as well as Italian, but I know a little bit of French. I don't know Italian. So that's that. I will finish these books and then I'll insert a clip of me letting you know more about them or just what I thought about them. So I finished reading Olivia and it was okay. It was basically about a young girl who falls in love with one of her teachers, and it seems as if the teacher has also fallen in love with her, but it seems like the teacher falls in love with a lot of students, as well as a lot of students falling in love with her. It wasn't terrible. And I liked it, but I also didn't like it because it's like the 16-year-old, she falls in love, but like, why? Because the bitch read stories in another language? Like, I just don't understand. I feel like with a lot of books involving women and being with other women, it's like they fall in love in the blink of a fucking eye. And in real life, it's not like that. Like, I've heard of the U-Haul lesbians and shit like that, but that's never happened to me. The 100 best love poems. Some of the poems were great. Some of the poems I didn't care for. But there were a lot of good poems in there. A lot of poems that I had read in school. It was a good collection of poems. Some of them I liked, some of them I didn't. And then I finally got to read the 8th book, which was Role Model by Rachel Reed, and I fucking loved it. Y'all already know I loved Heated Rivalry. I loved The Long Game. And Role Model did not disappoint. It takes place around the same time that The Long Game took place. And it involves Troy and Harris. Troy is the hockey player. Harris is the social media person. And it was just a fun, cute, sweet romance with some activism thrown in there and some justice being served thrown in there. And I cried at the end because it was just not sad tears, but happy tears because everything just worked out so well. And I love stories like that have happy endings, because I love a sad ending, but I love a happy ending también, because what the fuck? We need happiness, more happiness in books, more happiness in the world, more happiness in our own lives. And I know a lot of people talk shit about the Heated Rivalry, the Game Changer series. They talk shit about these books. But the facts are, these books are fun reads with beautiful stories, happy endings. How could anybody hate on that? All right, so that's it. Thanks for watching. Bye.